Good day. My name is Dr. Obinna Ebirim. I'm a public health physician, medical doctor, and health promotion specialist. And today we're going to talk about vaccines and immunization. If you find the movement of the slides very fast, please feel free to pause at a point and then go through the slides properly. In the course of this presentation, we're going to discuss what vaccines are, the types of vaccines, how vaccines are developed, how vaccines work, why immunization, and how can one get vaccinated, and what you need to do before or after if you're the one being vaccinated or you're taking um, someone else for vaccination, and then what really is the conclusion or summary of this presentation. So, as we can see in the slide, vaccines are actually weakened or dead pathogens that are intentionally introduced into the body. You can do that orally or via injections. And what they do is that when they get into the body, they cause the body immune cells to then develop antibodies. It is now these antibodies that fight pathogens when they then get into the body in form of infection. Now, beyond weakened or dead pathogens, there are also some genetically engineered antigens that still play the same role that weakened or dead pathogens play in as components of vaccines. Um, but then one special thing about um, the body immune system that vaccines utilize, which I think is the basis of immunization, is the fact that the body then keeps a memory of these antibodies for the real next real attacks. That's when an infection happens. And once the pathogen attacks in form of an infection, maybe weeks, months, years later after vaccination and then immunization that occur after vaccination, the body is now more prepared to win. And obviously, the body then wins better and is not overwhelmed by the infection, by the caused by that pathogen. So that's basically what vaccines are. So, what are the various types of vaccines? So, based on our definition of vaccines, we can see that we have ones that are called the life attenuated vaccines. These ones are the ones where the pathogen in its full form is weakened, but it's a live pathogen. So, the pathogen is not killed. You take a live pathogen, you just weaken it in such a way that it can elicit the um, antigen antibody reaction, but then it cannot cause infection. Examples of these types of vaccines are the measles, yellow fever, and rotavirus vaccine. We have the inactivated vaccines. So in this case, you take now the pathogen but killed. So once it's killed, it still retains its antigenic properties, but then it's obviously cannot cause infection because it cannot then grow and multiply. And so it's then introduced as a vaccine into the human body and then leads to the development of antibodies. Now, the other types of an example is the IPV, the injectable polio vaccine, and then the hepatitis A vaccine. Um, then you have the subunit vaccines, which are really take a component, so not the whole killed, but it's just a component of the killed pathogen, and you then use it to develop the vaccine. Example is the PCV and the Haemophilus influenza B vaccine. Then there is also other vaccines called the toxoid vaccine, right? So the toxoid vaccines is you take the toxin from the pathogen and then use it to develop the vaccine. Example is diphtheria and the pertussis vaccine. Then also we have the genetically engineered vaccine. So this is where you have the hepatitis B and then the vaccine and then the COVID-19 vaccine. So these are the various types of vaccines, and basically it's differentiated by the way these vaccines are made from the antigenic the what confers the antigenic property on the vaccine. So basically, we've known the various types of vaccines, but then how does these vaccines how do they develop? How are these vaccines developed? Now, it's important to know how these vaccines develop because it goes through a thorough and rigorous process, and that's what confers on it the safety and the assurance we have that these vaccines are safe and can be used. So it starts actually the process starts in laboratory where you then develop the active drug ingredient that's the vaccine itself, and then obviously you would have done a lot of research to ensure that the vaccine does what you want it to do, which is to prevent disease. Um, so once you have developed in the laboratory and you have what you think is a vaccine, you can't just then begin to give it administer it or get it WHO to approve. You have to go through a process called the preclinical animal trial. So preclinical means you're not introducing in humans first. So you start testing it in animals, and it's only when you have got a reasonable level of confidence that this works in animals, then you can now start it in humans. And in humans, you go through the clinical phases. So, and that clinical phase is basically what differentiates one from the other. It's you start small, very few, less than 100 in healthy individuals who volunteer. It's important that to know that these are volunteer. They're not just introduced to the general population. So you have to call for volunteers who will then volunteer in development of the vaccine, and then you start small and you basically begin to test for the safety and the efficacy, and then you move on to when you then think about to up to clinical phase 3 when you're testing thousands of volunteers and you begin to talk about the some of the medium to long-term effects and then the effectiveness of the vaccine, and also continue to check about the safety profile in various types population types. So basically that it's only when you have gone through these clinical phases that and you are confident about your findings, then you then send those findings for licensing and approval. And then that's only when it's approved by WHO, and it goes through a rigorous approval stage. Sometimes the strategic advisory group of experts on immunization have to meet and then debate. These are experts from all country, most from all parts of the world who come together to advise WHO. So, and then these are people also who declare that they have no interest, who declare no confidence of interest, and all that. So after then it's now introduced, and even when it's introduced, there's also a clinical phase 4 trial testing and a continuous monitoring to see if there are side effects, serious side effects that are not they were not picked earlier on or that become evident when you then use it in very large population or very diverse population. So basically, how do vaccines work? So the first thing is to know that it's not just only the antigenic property that is used in developing the vaccines. So you have the adjuvants, you have the stabilizers, because you have to keep these vaccines stable, and you have to keep them um, efficacious or working between where it's produced and where it's administered, a last mile. So the other ingredients you use in achieving that, all these things are safe. They are all part of the final vaccine that is now sent for approval. And then also when you work on the vaccine in the lab before it's now you start going through the various testing steps, you also have used cell culture material. So that thing is, so it's the whole component that then makes up the vaccine that is in the vial. Now, uh, there is two words that most times are used loosely used to mean the same, but they are different. It's vaccination and immunization. The first thing you do is vaccination. Vaccination is the process where you go and you receive these vaccines, right? It's administered. But then vaccination is just the act. What we are interested in is immunization. So the ability of the body to then develop immunity following vaccination, right? So that is then what happens. That is the process where the body stimulate development of the antibodies, various types, those that fight, those that cause the immunologic memory that we discussed earlier on. And then it's now that immunization, when it occurs, that immunity, that's what then stays there and then prevents either infection in the future, or if you know there's an infection, the effect is minimal compared to when there is no immunization. Then the other ways vaccines work beyond um, when it's administered in a person and then following that vaccination, there's immunization. Vaccines also work in a manner called herd immunity. So when you vaccinate a majority member of a community, a large proportion of a population, you the there is now a protection that is conferred on other members of that community that are not vaccinated. So you see that when you vaccinate, it's not just a personal responsibility, but also helping your community or the population you belong to. So that's another interesting way vaccines work. Other things we need to know about vaccine is that there could also be vaccine failure. So sometimes you hear stories like, "Oh, I was vaccinated. Why do I still have? Um, why did I still fall ill of that disease?" So there's a vaccine failure, but that's not only the reason. There's also processes where the vaccine is not properly stored and it loses its efficacy, right? The other different things, maybe not properly given and all that. But one important thing to note is that there's actually what we call vaccine failure. And vaccine failure occurs when the body is unable to mount um, appropriate immunity or immune response following vaccination. That's a primary vaccine failure. They will have the secondary vaccine failure where there is an initial immune response, but then that immunity wanes down over time, and then there is now need for a booster dose, right? So um, those are the those are the important things to know about how vaccines work. So there can actually be vaccine failure, and we usually it's not something that is quite common, but it occurs in about say about 10% of some vaccines. Like I think the measles vaccine, there have been reported vaccine failure where some people are not able to mount um, adequate immunity following vaccination. Now, there are also pathogens that mutate very fast, like the flu, the pathogen that causes flu. So what it means is that you then have to keep developing new vaccine mostly every season. So that's why I see most time people have a flu shot, and next flu season they have to take another flu shot because then a new vaccine would have been developed following the mutation of the previous pathogen causing the flu. So, and it's important to note that um, there is no vaccine that is 100% effective. So sometimes it's 99, 98, 90, 94, and all that. And like drugs you take, sometimes you take a drug or an injection, you have mild pain at the point of injection or redness. Vaccines also are like drugs, they have mild side effects. But it's important to know that once this side effect becomes huge, are not approved because the side effect must be mild or there is no side effect at all before these vaccines are actually approved for use. But then why immunization? Why is it special really? Immunization saves 3 million lives every year globally. So assuming today we say we are not vaccinating people to confirm that immunity, we might be losing up to 3 million lives every year. And immunization has had very interesting success story. Most of us living in this generation are not even aware. We only read it on textbooks of what smallpox is. But these are diseases that were eradicated thanks to immunization programs. And the ones we met in our generation is the poliomyelitis. And we can see that also through immunization program, we're achieving almost 99% eradication. But beyond that, immunization also has some other additional effect. Like studies have shown that children who are immunized, they grow better and they develop better. They have better cognitive function, and it also provides financial protection against treatment of vaccine preventable. And that financial savings, or that savings, it's not just about the money you spend on treating those vaccine preventable diseases, but also the money, the the time that the caregiver would waste staying and looking after the sick, right? These are things that are saved when we immunize when we vaccinate our children and then immunization takes place. We then save these people or save ourselves from these vaccine preventable diseases, and we save the cost of treatment and the cost of care, and also even reduce the pressure on the health facility and the health workforce. So with these various case points of mind, you can see that it's important that we all vaccinate to achieve immunization. So how can you get vaccinated to um, or partake in immunization program? So vaccination delivered at fixed post sections or outreach sections. So fixed post is in the clinic health facility or designated area where they are particular days when you either go or take your word to go there for vaccination. So these are fixed posts. You know a particular venue doesn't change. Then they have particular days of the week you go there, or all days of the week, depending on how the program runs. And then you have the outreach sections where the health worker then moves out from that post to maybe into the community or designated area just to meet the immediate needs of the people in that area. Sometimes we have this outreach because some people live in very far areas from the health facility or hard to reach areas, and we to ensure that their community also benefits from the from immunization. This immunization program needs to be taken with to them. Um, so it's important that you call your healthcare provider to find out where the vaccination will take place, on what date and what time, and you you can also check online for schedules or even ask your health provider to find out the schedule. There's usually most countries have their immunization schedule. This is for Nigeria, and when you look at the schedule, it informs you on what vaccines at what time, where it's given, and all that. It's important, even if it's for your ward or for yourself, to have some of the basic information so that you know what you're receiving, and that helps to boost confidence. Other things, there's usually a vaccination card that is given to you. It's important you keep it safe because that card would hold either your number or your records. These days, records are digitalized, so but you need to have something like a number that then calls up that digital record. So what in whatever form it is, either an immunization card, number, and all that, please keep it safe because then that has your record, and also somehow helps you. In some cases, it helps you to remind you on your next visit because usually it's written there in the case of a vaccination card. So this is how you get vaccinated. Call your healthcare provider to provide the information on the place, the time, and the date, and you can look up the immunization schedule of your country to find out the vaccines, the exact vaccines, and then where they are given and at what age they are given. So, what are the things you can do before, or during, and after? So, one important thing is that you have to arrive early. Usually, if it's a fixed post, a lot of people know that immunization is going to take place that day, unless it's a process where you call in and book. But even when you book, you have to come early and get registered. You need to, if you are not the one receiving and you're bringing your child, you need to hold the child in a comfortable position. You can see this picture from the World Health Organization on how to suit a child during vaccination. So you hold the child in comfortable position. You can breastfeed during or immediately after. You can also use things like toys, books, or sing to distract the baby. And as the healthcare worker, the healthcare worker needs to be calm, collaborative, and keep informing you as a caregiver. And then we make the process collaborative so that, oh, you ask that, can I go, I want to do this, please can I do this, and all that. So the caregiver also feel informed and is more receptive of the process. If there are various vaccines that are given, you have to maybe start with the ones that are less painful. So, if for example you're coming and there is a combination of oral and injectables that will be given that day, it's advised that you start with the oral first and then go to the least painful. So, but as a caregiver or the receiver of the vaccine, if an adult, you also need to listen carefully because the vaccinator or the health worker would give you some instructions, tell you when next to come back, and then some vital information about what you need to do if you feel pain or feel any mild side effect. Um, and then if you get home and then you're worried or you're seeing side effects that are beyond what you have been told, or you've tried to do what you have been told to do, like take acetaminophen or any of the pain relievers, and you are still feeling um, these side effects, it's time to return to your caregiver. Return to your caregiver. Do not assume, do not listen to rumors. Just return to your caregiver, and he or she will be able to take care of whatever your worries are. So, in conclusion, what we have discussed today is that vaccines are actually developed in a manner that are safe, that makes them safe and effective. It's a rigorous process of development and approval, and then there's also continuous testing even once after being approved and released to the general public. Immunization save lives, money, time, has led to this eradication. We'll give an example of smallpox that have been eradicated, and poliomyelitis that it's almost 99% eradicated. And we also talked about that when you vaccinate your ward, there are benefits to yourself, but also to your community, because then through herd immunity, the unvaccinated few members of your community are protected. So these are the reasons why you need to um, get vaccinated or vaccinate your child or your ward that is under your supervision. And then on how to get vaccinated, you need to call your healthcare provider. It's usually given at the health facility fixed posts or an outreach section. So you get this information. You can also look up for your country immunization routine immunization schedule that will tell you additional information, and some other information can also be seen on the vaccination card for subsequent visits. So feel free to call your health worker before and listen to the health worker during the vaccination process, and then after if you have any worry. So in summary, vaccines actually work. Immunization is one of the most cost-effective public health interventions. It has saved many lives. It continues to save today 3 million every year. So get vaccinated. Encourage others to get vaccinated today. So thank you for listening. We have been speaking about vaccines and immunization. Feel free to ask your questions and drop your comments so that we can interact. Thank you.